Welcome to Momentum's virtual training series, where we invite expert facilitators to share their knowledge on topics that advance women in leadership.
Hey, everyone who is signing on right now. Thank you for being here today with Momentum Leaders in our virtual training. Today, we have our special treat, our very own April Benetollo, our CEO. We are going to make a shift in things today. Our previous scheduled speaker, she has ended up being sick and cannot be here today. So true to the nature of how we handle everything here at Momentum, we did make a pivot. And we are going to get to have a special treat today with April talking about leadership in the next level.
April Benetollo, I'm the CEO here at Momentum, and what I'm excited about sharing with you today is kind of a synopsis of what we do during a year of leadership programming here at Momentum. This is a presentation I call Next Level Leadership, and it's so appropriate for you no matter where you are in your career. This is a presentation about leveling up to your next spot. Now, we do our normal programs over a period of 6 to 9 months, and today we have about 40 minutes. So,
High level, very fast.
it is very high level, but I also have included a lot of great takeaways. So you may want to take some notes, and also we can, as this presentation will be recorded, and we're going to upload it to our YouTube channel as we do with most of our virtual trainings. So if you need to go back and rewatch something, if you need, you want to review a screen, that's going to be available to you on YouTube. So don't worry too much about it. So I want to start by this quote from Lyndon Johnson: "If it is to be, it's up to me." This is something that my parents told me a lot while I was growing up. And it definitely impressed upon me that if there's something that we want, if there's something that we want to achieve, we cannot wait for other people to place a crown upon our heads. It's really up to us to map out a plan and to decide who we need around us and how we can get there. So I love this. If it is to be, it's up to me. And I want to share with you just an overview of our momentum model that starts, we frame all of our leadership training on 4 pillars. And so those 4 pillars start with expanding your self-awareness. So this has to do with taking professional, like personality tests, some professional level 360 degrees reviews and assessments, so that we figure out how we're wired, we figure out what makes us tick, and then we can start understanding how we can relate with other people depending on what their personality types are.
And I'm big on that too, because without your self-awareness, number one, you're not going to feel confident as a leader because you don't really understand what your challenges are, as well as the things that you're awesome at that you take for granted. A lot of times as women, we take it for granted. There's some of the things we're great at. Well, everybody can do that. And that's not the truth.
The second pillar has to do with vision casting. So this is a 2-part process. It's getting rid of all of the negative energy that we have, the negative self-talk, and understanding where our strengths lie, and then casting a vision about where we want to go. The third pillar has to do with action planning. So I always say a dream without a plan is just a wish. And so we can have a dream, and then we need to map out some things in a reasonable time frame, identify what resources we need, and draft our action plan. The final pillar has to do with connecting to community. So many times we think, I can just do it alone. So if it is to be, it's up to me, means I take ownership, but that doesn't mean you have to do it alone.
And you can't.
And you can't do it
go
alone.
as far. You can get a little way, but not as far.
That's right. So we, through Momentum, connect women to other resources in their community so that they have the additional help that they need to make their plan a reality. So we have been doing this for 23 years, going on 24. So we have learned quite a bit about advancing women in leadership. And I just want to pause here because there is nothing that we teach here that is really specific to women. This is leadership development, pure and simple. So if we have men in our lives, men on our teams, or if there are men joining the session today, all of these same principles apply.
Exactly.
So we do our work through three main channels. That is the programs that we provide, the events that we do, such as our annual conference, and then the resources that we provide. For example, Darla runs our mentor matching program. That's a tremendous resource. We also have our YouTube channel, but we'll talk more about that in a little bit. I do want to talk about some of the prevalent barriers that we see to advancement, and I think these will resonate with a lot of our participants today. And if they do, I would invite you to put it in the chat, like maybe get specific about how you have experienced this particular thing. So one is lack of access to informal networks. So this is when you don't get invited to the meeting that was outside of the meeting. This is when you're not a member of the golf club. This is when you don't even maybe know how to golf. But a lot of decisions are getting made there. So there are lots of informal networks that, for whatever reason, we don't have access to because we're not in the in group with the people who are formalizing those networks. The second one is probably cultural stereotypes of what a leader looks like or acts like. And this can be, society has us informed that leaders tend to be male, and they tend to be white, and they tend to be tall, and they tend to be authoritative. And, these are real stereotypes. There's nothing to say that somebody
or age
or being female doesn't have great leadership qualities. There's also assumptions about anybody's ability, but especially women, their ability to manage their family and their career. So there are times when somebody might not be given a promotion because they say, well, she's just had 2 kids, or, he just became a single dad. So we're never going to give them this hot project. When that's really an assumption that they're making. They have no idea whether you have the support to be able to handle it or not. So that's a big problem. There's a lack of commitment from senior leaders, sometimes to advance people who don't look like them. And then there can sometimes be a lack of role models and mentors for people who do not look like the typical leader. So if these are things that you've seen in your career, then we'd love to hear about that also.
Yeah.
The final thing is the double bind bias. This is where we say we're damned if we do and we damned if we don't. Sometimes, trying to appear likable means you are not decisive or not assertive. Or sometimes when you are told to be more assertive, then you get feedback that you're being aggressive. So this is sort of
the moving target.
That's right. So that's the double bind bias. But the number one barrier to advancing in leadership really is you. Because all of those things that I just mentioned, guess what? They're not going away anytime soon. We cannot systematically change them. We are working very hard to change them little by little, but it takes time. The number one thing is that we are holding ourselves back by not learning how to navigate those barriers. So a lot of what we teach at Momentum is, yes, we can acknowledge that these things happen and they are in the room, but what we really need to work on is our response to those things.
The biggest proof of all of that is when we started Momentum Works, we honestly thought we didn't know how this would take off. It was a wonderful grant, the Bold grant that we were awarded, and we thought, we don't know if the timing is right. We don't know if any people will receive it. Oh my word. For those of you who've been through Momentum Works, it's just on fire. And the reason is because we've been able to teach women and men who have never been given permission to negotiate, to stand up for yourself, to look for something more, because they've just been taught, heads down, get your job done, don't rock the boat.
That's right.
And we have been able to help break that mold that's been incorrectly set.
Yeah.
And give people permission who never had it before.
So let's move into our first pillar, which has to do with self-awareness. So this is all about managing yourself first. So before we get into having leadership and other people, we need to manage our own selves, our own response to the events of the world and on our own terms. So one of the key ways that we inspire our participants to do this is by taking these self-assessments and these tests. So I know like Darla is certified in the DISC assessment. That's one of my very favorite assessments. It's DISC. And it's a fantastic assessment of really how we respond in the workplace. There's it comes with a fee. So something I want to offer to everyone that's easily accessible is this personality assessment test called 16 Personalities. You can get to it at 16personalities.com. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to complete the test. And they give you a really nice rundown of your personality type, which is essentially based on the Myers-Briggs personality type.
It's good too.
The second one is called emotional intelligence. And so while 16 Personalities tells you how you're wired, the emotional intelligence book really talks about how you react to other personality types and how you can improve your emotional intelligence. Because unlike IQ, which you're kind of born with and stuck with, emotional intelligence actually can be significantly shifted with effort. And there's proof in the data that shows that people who have high emotional intelligence, on average, earn $27,000 more a year. So it's worth investing a little bit. So one of the first things about understanding around self-awareness is understanding how we're motivated. So I would love for you to take a second and look down the left column and the right column and think about what motivates you. And again, maybe in the chat, if you want to plug in there, my top three would be, and these things can change over time and they can change over the course of your career. So sometimes, if you're just starting out, you may be much more motivated by money and title, your job title and recognition than you would be later in your career, where you might be a little bit more prone to be motivated by gaining knowledge, by helping others. Am I having an impact on the world? Now, there's nothing to say that those motivations on the right can't also apply to someone early in their career. It's just really important to know what is your key motive, because then you can inform others around you and say, hey, knowledge is really important to me. So any opportunities I have for professional development here, I would love to be made aware of those.
One thing that I was taught at the very beginning, because the first group that I was ever with when I was working, they were all about the money and the power. And I was like, that's not my motivation. And they pointed out, but if you want to have a meaningful mission and you want to help others, you're going to have some level of power and leadership in order to make an impact. So that was another thing that I have learned through Momentum, is how to translate. If I really want to help others, I can't do it if I'm not able to give and if I'm not able to lead. So
That's right.
I think they kind of mesh together.
They do. The second thing I want to say here, and I love to say, feedback is like the breakfast of champions.
Cold.
Feedback is free, but we often don't think to ask about it. So this is one of the number one ways that we can move up, level up to our next level of leadership, is by asking others how they perceive us. And so you want to ask for feedback very often, not just at your, just prior to your annual review, but ask for it very often, and ask for feedback from a diverse group of people. So ask feedback from your peers, from your leaders, from your direct reports. Hey, how do you think that meeting went? Or I've been working on I've been working on speaking up at meetings, and I would like your feedback. Have you noticed a difference? So those are just a couple of examples of easy ways to ask for feedback. And you have to also take with a grain of salt who's giving you the feedback.
Yeah, be careful.
Not all feedback is coming from equal sources. So you can say, okay, well, they gave me some interesting things to think about. And if you receive harsh feedback that, at first you might be feeling defensive, a good way to reply is, thank you for that feedback. That gives me a lot to think about. And you can leave it at that. And then do think about it, especially if it was from, a valued source. And so the 360 there just has to do with really asking your full circle of peers, direct reports, those around you, even your family, for feedback on, and that
can be really,
that can be dangerous. The third thing around self-awareness, and again, this is something that is totally free, but we don't always take the time to do it, is self-reflection. It's very hard to get to the next place without reflecting on where you are today, what got you there, what you're grateful for, what you're hopeful for, and putting a name to the feelings that you have. So any psychologist will tell you this. If you can name it, you can begin to deal with it. And so some great ways to do this, and again, all of these are free, is keeping a journal. It doesn't have to be fancy. Doing prayer or meditation also on a daily basis. Purposeful walks. Another great example of, I'm going to walk, when I'm going to take a walk and I'm going to not have this with me, or I'm going to turn it off and I'm going to refuse to get it out of my pocket. But a purposeful walk where you just allow your mind to be in a little bit of a meditative state. These are all free self-reflections. Kind of is, in a nutshell, is our first pillar of self-awareness. Just some really key things that you can do for free to develop your self-awareness. And then moving on to our second pillar is visualizing possibilities. And I want to get on into this because it's important.
Yes.
It's all important. I love this one. So according to the National Science Foundation, we have approximately 60,000 thoughts a day. Some maybe more, but approximately 60,000 thoughts a day. Now, I want you to consider this. 75% of the thoughts that we have, on average, are negative thoughts. I don't deserve this. I'm not ready for this. I can't do this. This ticks me off. I'm all kinds of no good things. Well, we have 75% of our 60,000 thoughts are negative, and 95% of those thoughts are repetitive.
So that's
think about that.
That's the
That means we're having the same, maybe 5, 6 negative thoughts every day. I'm never going to earn enough money to get out of debt. I'm never going to get this next promotion. I'm never going to be free of this boss that's driving me crazy. These are not good thoughts to have. We are like cows just ruminating on the same cud. But a cow has like 5 stomachs. We could do the digestion. Yeah, we don't.
We only got one brain.
So just think about this. When we ruminate, we get bloat. And nobody wants. So, yeah, if this is you, put it in the chat, because honestly, it's all of us. But this is something that we can work on, okay? And so what we want to do instead is get to a place where we can visualize better possibilities for ourselves and reduce that negative self-talk. So one of the first ways to do that is to understand where your strengths are. I want to emphasize that a strength is not the same thing as being good at something. A strength means it is a true innate talent. A very simple barometer, it seems obvious, is does what I'm doing make me feel strong? Does it give me energy? When I'm doing it, do I kind of lose track of time? Am I in my flow? It's sort of like the new agey way of saying it. When I am doing this part of my job, I am in my flow.
It's your genius.
Yeah, it is your genius. Now, you can be good at something and it not be a strength.
Because you learn how to do it.
I use, for example, I am good at organizing a closet, but I freaking hate to do it. It seems like a big old waste of time, even though I appreciate the end result. But so that would be something that I delegate to my daughter, who actually loves to do it. So the strength is the thing that makes you feel powerful and gives you energy. The second part of visualizing possibilities is where's your passion? This picture is actually from Children's Hospital, where they have the superhero day. So people who are motivated to go in and make the day just like super duper for these kids that are in Children's Hospital, as an example of somebody that is able to live in their passion. And sometimes we uncover our passions by what's an underutilized talent. Like I remember a woman that went through Momentum who worked for the gas company. She was in some sort of like risk management over operations for the gas company. Well, she really loved doing makeup and styling.
Wow. Total opposite.
Exactly. And so the idea there is like, well, you know, is there a way to blend, like, okay, you've got this career over here, but could you also help women, you know, that want to dress differently or update their look as a way to express your passion? And the other way of uncovering a passion is what social causes are important to you. Do you want to volunteer for an organization like Momentum? I don't know. The Humane Society. Where does your passion lie? Is it what area of the world would you like to improve, or what? If you love culinary arts, or you love the arts in general, you love to write, you love research. These are examples of passions and social causes that can really help us understand what our possibilities could be. And the third thing is to assess where are the opportunities. So it's one thing to be strong at something and to be passionate about something. So I'll just give an example. Like, I'm relatively good at cooking.
No. Okay. I'm sorry. She's great at cooking.
I generally can pull off cooking. So I would say that it's a strength. And I would say I'm pretty passionate about it. As a matter of fact, when I couldn't sleep last night, because I was having a dream where I could not fix I could not solve for a certain problem within a meal. So I am passionate about it.
And you get lost in it and you use it to unwind you when you're
Yes. Now, is there an opportunity for me at the age I am? I just started cooking like 7 years ago. Is there an opportunity for me to do it? Maybe there is, but I would really need to assess that very carefully at this juncture in my career, or do I want to just keep it as a passion? So my point here is, if you look at the job market, if you look at your own financial situation, you look at where are my chances to advance in my career and where can I make the biggest difference?
Yeah.
Cooking I love doing it for my family, but I actually don't like doing it for a big crowd. So I'm not going to say I'm going to make a great, impactful contribution through but all of these things come together in what we call the career sweet spot. When you take your strengths, you take the opportunities, and you take the passions, and they overlap. So for me, in my example, one of my strengths is connecting people, setting a vision, and creating impactful teams. One of my passions is women in the workplace. Women who have careers, and how can they best succeed in those careers. And one of the opportunities that came along on my path was I had done momentum as a participant. And when I had an opportunity to exit the software career that I had when I went through momentum, I volunteered with momentum, my passion. And within the next year, our founder, Barbara Royal, announced that she was going to retire and encouraged me to put my name in the hat to become the leader. So that was the career sweet spot where my strengths of connecting people, setting a vision, and building the team overlapped with my passion for women in professional careers and the opportunity that came along with the perfect vehicle to do that at Momentum. We're looking for that career sweet spot.
And let me just emphasize too, wherever you're at and you feel like you're in one of those spots, give it time and go back to that. Not only the feedback, but find someone that you really trust that can say, hey, this is one area that if you would just tweak a few more things, you're going to be able to make it work. Don't try to figure it out all on your own. Once again, like what we talked about earlier, find some people that are a really good resource for feedback.
That's a great segue into going the third pillar, which is going for it. So going for it is about designing an action plan that can really work for you and move you to the next level. We're not talking about, hey, I've got to do something, I've got to draft a plan that will get me all the way through retirement. We're looking for a plan that gets you to the next level. So I love it. Me and my, since I have my current dog, El Chapo, he is so crazy about squirrels that we spend a lot of time at the picture window in the living room studying squirrels and on walks, letting him chase them. Squirrels are amazing. So I don't even know if you know, I'm just going to digress here for 1 second.
We're having a squirrel moment.
That's the squirrels, have you ever noticed, like, when they, crossing the street and they're like, God, they're so stupid. They're so erratic. Like, they zoom, 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 and they like zoom in front of your car instead of away from it. It's not because squirrels are stupid. That is evolutionarily how they are trained to escape a predator, to confuse the path. And I've watched them do it to my dog. I'll run that way, then that way, then that way, then that way. Okay. If you watch a squirrel leap when it's not being chased, when it's threatened, they leap with absolute incredible precision. Have you ever seen a squirrel like leap from one tree to another and like fall to the ground?
No, they land on the land they want to land on.
Right. So there are scientific studies about this, about how amazing squirrels are at judging their trajectory, the bounce of the limb, and all kinds of things. So I love this metaphor for creating an action plan. We do not want to feel back against the wall. We don't want to feel pressured. This needs to be something we want to go for on our own and think intentionally about how we get there and how we use our strengths to get there.
And so do it.
And we do it.
Don't overthink it. That is my worst thing.
Just do it with a little bit of planning.
Well, yeah.
So the first thing here is to establish your growth plan. We encourage our participants to set a maximum of 4 goals. I think 3 is even better, but if you are an overachiever, you might have 4. And just be clear about what those goals are. Give yourself, I'm going to skip accountability partners for a second. Give yourself a timeline that is reasonable. And I like to say, in the next 3 to 6 months, maximum maybe a year, because anything further out than that, you can set that as a vision, but you can't really plan that far. Okay. So then coming to accountability partners, if you don't tell anybody about what it is that you're planning to do, then it's so easy to backslide. But if you let a few people that you know and trust know what it is that you've got in mind, they can, and you ask them, please hold me accountable, you're much more likely to stick to your plan. Right. And then finally, what are your resources? Do you need a certification? Do you need a loan? Do you need to take a certain class? Are there some people that you need to meet? These are all examples of resources that you can say, this is what I need externally to be able to help advance me in my plan. The second thing here on action plan is support. So different from an accountability partner, support is maybe a co-mentoring group, maybe an official mentor. You can get one from Darla. An executive sponsor within your organization, somebody who speaks on your behalf when you can't always be in the room. And then the personal bod is not your body, it's your board of directors. And so like every company needs a board of directors. You also need a personal board of directors that is comprised of people who represent and diverse, that's redundant, different areas of expertise. So you might have a friend, and you might have a professional acquaintance, and you might have parents. You might have a religious leader that you admire. You might have a professional coach. So these are all examples of people who might be on your personal board of directors. And then finally, negotiation. We often think negotiation is a dirty word. We don't like it. We feel like we're taking advantage of somebody. And that really is sort of an outdated mode of trying to get what you want. What we train our participants to do is to negotiate based on a value, to negotiate based on something that is important to me, but what's also important to you. Yeah. So that comes to the win-win that's at the end of this list. So you want to think about who am I negotiating with, and how do I present it in such a way that I am getting something out of it and they are getting something out of it. Another thing that is really important, especially for people who don't feel comfortable negotiating, is to think of the advocate model, which simply means I'm better, and I say this personally, I am better at negotiating on others' behalf than I am on my own.
I think most of us are.
And most of us are. So I can go and say to my sister, well, if I was in that room, I would tell them this and this, you're good at this, and this, and you've been doing this work for 25 years, and this is what you can offer, and they're going to save this much money by not having to replace you. And I can come up with all kinds of great negotiation points for someone else. But when I need to do it for myself, it feels awkward. So put yourself in the mindset, if I was doing this for someone else, how would I map this out? What would I say? The whole playing field idea has to do with you only want to have one thing in your pocket that you're negotiating for. You want to have something in your back pocket. And this is sometimes called a BATNA, BATNA, which is an acronym for the best alternative to a negotiated agreement, which it simply means if you don't agree with what I'm asking for, and you say, if I say, you know, I'm asking for a raise and Darla's my boss, and she's like, it's just not in the budget. You know, we just lost a major client, and that is, while you're very deserving, it's just simply financially not something that we can do right now. To which I might say, I understand that is the situation. Is this something, number one, is this something that we could revisit in 6 months? Yeah. And if I can't negotiate for a higher salary at this time, I would like you to consider offering a more flexible schedule, because I'm seeking some professional development for which I'm going to need some additional time. Yeah. And is that something that we could talk about at present? So that's having an alternative to the primary negotiation.
Don't just don't leave it closed. Always have a follow through.
That's right. And then this brings us to our fourth and final pillar. This is leveraging a network, which is all about knowing the right people. And as you can tell, I was on a little bit of an animal kick when I came up with this presentation. So
Tell us about the water buffalo.
The water buffalo, well, the water buffalo is actually a little less important in this particular analogy than this bird, which is the oxpecker. Well, the oxpecker gets on an ox or water buffalo in this instance and pulls off all the little parasites on this gigantic animal, which might be annoying, except that the water buffalo is really appreciative to not have the parasites. So it's like, well, I might have to go cross-eyed and put up with this little oxpeck in order to get rid of my parasite. My point here is this is now they've got a networking relationship, don't they? Each one is getting something out of this relationship. And that's the way
beneficial.
That we need to think about our networking opportunities as well. We think about them in terms of what is it that I need from this person or this group of people, and also the two-way street. What do I have to get back? And don't let yourself go into the negative thought spiral of I have nothing to give back. We all have something that we can contribute.
And don't also assume, well, they wouldn't want to hear from me. Don't answer for them. Go ahead and ask.
If you don't give anything else back other than gratitude, believe me, it will be so deeply appreciated. Someone who has done something for you in a networking capacity, who doesn't have somebody circle back, that does feel very one way. It feels very much like you went out of your way to do something and it just kind of maybe went unnoticed. When you circle back and you give that level of gratitude, oh my gosh, it feels and it makes
the difference.
The other person feel so good.
Makes them feel seen and valued.
And valued. So the number one thing in networking is to make it intentional. When I was first starting my career and I was in sales and marketing, and my gosh, you have to network. And I thought it meant going into a room and giving everybody in the room my business card.
I think we all do that at first.
It might work if you're, selling something that every single person needs. But anyway, this is just not the way to network. And plus, nobody has business cards anymore. What we want to do is be very intentional. Be intentional about where we decide to spend our time. Which events do we go to? Finding out in advance who's going to be there. Finding out in advance what so-and-so could possibly do for you. And then thinking about what it is that you could possibly do for them. It's helpful to look at networking opportunities that might be industry-based. So these would be people in diverse roles, but that are in the same industry as you are. So if you're in finance, or if you're in manufacturing, or if you're in sales, in maybe an insurance environment, then going to networking events that are based in that industry will allow you to meet other people who are facing similar challenges and similar opportunities to your own. Now, the other type of networking is with people who share your role, but in a different industry. And that can be super, super advantageous. I know for me, I deeply appreciated when I was in a really fast-paced, software development environment in marketing, and getting together with people who were in marketing and like a manufacturing sector, and how different those applications of campaigns could be, for example. And then the other thing is that the opportunity to network online today, to join groups on LinkedIn and to actually get in there and ask for somebody's advice. I mean, it's so incredible that we can link up with someone who shares our role and shares our industry, but who might be in Wisconsin or might be in California, or might work for a $40 million company when you work for a $400,000 company. But these are great connections that we can make regardless of where we sit, just because we have that ability. The second way you can do some great mentoring great networking is through a mentoring process. And so Darla can talk just briefly, ever so briefly, for the sake of time,
Yes.
about our mentoring process here at
Mentoring process. We've been doing this and we've tweaked it throughout the years. We've been doing this for 23 years, and we have such an amazing retention rate because the way we've set it up, it is a formal mentoring. That means you have a beginning time, you have an end time, and you have a goal set during that whole process. And everything that we've been talking about feeds into good mentoring, where you are, it's the reciprocal. Am I saying that right? Where the mentee is learning from the mentor, but also the mentor is learning from the mentee. And I'll be honest with you, 9 times out of 10, after the 6 months has ended, I have people come back and say, "Can we still meet?" Yes, we want you to. We just track it for 6 months, but we want to create that allyship, that where someone's in your corner, not just for those 6 months, but down the road, because that is going to feed into also your growth plans. So I love how we do our mentoring group, and that it's open to anyone. We don't have to come through our program to get a mentor or to be a mentor.
Yeah, and we do make it formal. So we ask for a formal agreement because that gets a commitment from both parties.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it's very easy to meet once or twice and just sort of let it, fall off the train. So that's one of the things that makes it so successful is Darla's doing regular check-ins with our mentoring pairs to make sure that they are staying on track because, let's be honest.
Life has been.
The final thing here is community. So at the end of all of our leadership programs, we really talk a lot about, with our participants, about how much they've received and how much we have poured into them, and also how good and fulfilling it feels to give back and to continue on with this feeling an established community. So a few ways that leaders can get involved with the community are volunteering, maybe serving on a nonprofit board, which we do have some resources for, different industry groups. So deciding to join a trade association that is within your sector, or also getting involved with local schools and universities who are always looking for volunteers to come and speak to their students, speak to classes. And before you start thinking that you don't have time to do any of these things, I urge you to consider how much you will get back from it. I can say that, like, when I was at the very busiest height of my family responsibilities, my career, that tech company was routinely asked to come and speak to schools and universities. And I did it for recruiting reasons because I would talk to these students about my job and then, of course, by extension, my company. And I can't tell you how many applicants we had that it turned out to be hires that came and said, "You spoke to my class when I was a sophomore at UAB, and it made a real impression." Oh my gosh. I was doing it at the time for a specific advantage, but it came back later as just such a great feeling that I impacted somebody's life and that they were now starting a really exciting career with our company. So the ideal way to get involved with the community, if you are stretched for time, is to find one that overlaps with either of your obligations. So that would be like, in my case, I worked for a software company and I wanted to get involved with Tech Birmingham as a volunteer and join their board. So I talked with our CEO about it and got his blessing. Now I'm doing volunteer work that was also part of my job. So I was not taking extra hours.
And it wasn't
to do it.
It's so completely off track of what you're already doing.
Right. And then on the flip side of that, if it's maybe you don't want it to take away from your family time. So maybe you have sons and you want to volunteer at the Boy Scouts, or you have a daughter, you want to volunteer with the Girl Scouts, and that gives you an opportunity to spend time with your own kids while also doing volunteer work. So there are ways to do both and we just really encourage all of our leaders to think strongly about how they can give back and get involved with the community. So that concludes our 4 pillars. 6 to 9 months of leadership training in 40 minutes or 45 minutes. I want to leave you with a few additional resources here. And Darla is actually going to close us out. And let's see, it's 12:45. We have about 5 minutes to look at questions. But yeah, actually, I was not in here the last minute when our original trainer called in sick. I do have to get to a dentist appointment.
Thank you. I got to give you a hack. But this is what leadership looks like, is at the last minute, and going, okay, let's fix this. And so I just want to encourage all of you. We're being honest and very vulnerable this morning. With every one of your businesses and organizations, things don't always go as you had planned. And so go with the flow, not in a haphazard way, but always be willing to pivot and do what it takes to make things keep going.
Momentum's virtual trainings are made possible with the support of Protective Life, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, and America's Thrift. Find the full list of sponsors as well as additional resources for women leaders on our website at momentumleaders.org. Thanks for taking the time to invest in you, and remember to like, subscribe, and share our channel. We love reading thoughts and comments, so you can leave those for us here too. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn by searching Momentum Leaders.